Great, thanks Paul, and thanks very much for having us tonight, everyone. We're excited to be here and share where we're at and where we're going with next steps on the project. So first up, just as by way of agenda, we'll just share tonight some of the information related to the work the team has done since the fall of 2020, tendering and the results there, and the associated financial implications. Some of the work, as Dean noted, with regards to change around the site, logistics and communication of those changes during the construction. Work that's been happening and continues to happen for a groundbreaking event coming up in April, as well as next steps. And then a presentation from Paul on the design overview, just to revisit, as it's been some time since we've been in front of council with the facility design as we move forward. So in October of 2020, we were in front of council here and presenting options to move forward. And at that time, we were instructed to take the project to tender. So we did that in Q4 of 2020, and bids closed in December. So the team's been working really hard to vet those bids, level them, and verify that everything was bid in accordance with the final construction design and specifications and requirements, and that all requirements were considered, and arrive at a final contract price. So that was a significant effort by all team members and city staff as well, and concluded in late February. And we've developed a phase strategy to align with the ICIP grant application that was submitted in the fall of 2020, and ensure that as much of the project cost could remain eligible for that grant as possible. So we've divided that in the major construction contract into two phases. The first being a contract of approximately $80 million, and that we'll be looking to award that in short order and as we move into construction. And that falls within the guidelines of the 2021 approved capital budget. The team has also been working to optimize design and subcontract values through alternates and various value engineering means and methods, and we continue to work within the overall project budget of $106.6 million. And through that value engineering exercise, the focus has really been to ensure no programmatic maintenance or operational impacts were seen. So as I mentioned, the ICIP grant was a second intake, and an application was submitted with Denise Tambellini and others supporting in the fall of 2020. And so where we've seen that division of scope now is a phase one for just shy of $80 million to construct the new facility itself, as well as all essential services to that facility, such as electricity, water, sanitary and sewer, and others. And we withheld awarding any work that sits outside of that new facility, all the site improvement work and so on and so forth, as that is what is applied for through the ICIP grant application. And the application seeks $4 million in support of that work. So we need to hold off on those contract awards to ensure the eligibility there. Presently, we anticipate that granting decision would be coming in late Q2 or Q3 of 2021, and at which time we would look to bring an update back to Mayor and Council as to the outcome and next steps in rolling that deferred work back into the project plan to ensure that there is no misstep in ensuring the site between the new facility McBride is constructed prior to the opening of the new aquatic and community center. Just next slide there, Paul. Thank you. Yeah. So as we transition from the pre-construction phase to construction, most notably, there's going to be significant impact in movement around the site and the neighborhood. So we've been doing a lot of work with the stakeholders at the site, the operations teams of the Canada Games Pool and Centennial Community Center, as well as the fire department and other rec staff as it relates to the field. So we've implemented the project construction communication plan that was previously presented to Task Force and Council in 2020, as well as working with the communications city staff and our Your Active NWACC website to ensure that there's updates and current information along the way. The team has also implemented the requirements and procedures of the Good Neighbor policy and keeping the immediate neighborhood and adjacent properties apprised of all the upcoming developments around the site as it moves into that construction phase. And on the next slide here, we see a site plan that's provided for on the website and being distributed amongst the neighborhood. And what it really shows here in the yellow border and the hatched area is the phase 1 construction site and the zone that would be cordoned off from any public access. And so what that provides there, as you can see, is the footprint for the future Aquatics and Community Center, as well as the construction zone, which is largely occupying the old recycling depot space, as well as the gravel field for laydown and logistics, as well as construction site parking to some extent. And the impacts with that, of course, is the people attending the Canada Games Pool and Centennial Community Center will no longer be able to access off of 6th. Rather, those 2 entrances off Cumberland will be utilized. Pedestrian movements have also been impacted from 6th, and we highlight those with the dashed red lines here to both the Curling Club, Community Center, around to Aquatics. I think an important note is we've worked with the construction manager to ensure that the greenway access would be continuous along the side that's adjacent to the Justice Institute, and we'll look to ensure that continuity and access is maintained through construction, really only seeing isolated disruptions for certain activities and or deliveries that might need to take place. The project team is working with the operations staff of the facilities to implement new parking and wayfinding signage to support the changes at the site as well, and the COVID measures that are currently in place with some of the exterior tenting and staging areas to facilitate patrons to the Canada Games Pool. So lots of changes there, but we continue to work with all the stakeholders and communicate that information out as it evolves along the way. And so to the groundbreaking event, Steve Kellick has been leading a lot of this work with the Naming Advisory Committee, and through those conversations, it's been recommended and steps are being put in place to hold a groundbreaking event, albeit it will be a virtual event at this time with only small attendance in person in keeping with COVID protocols. And the committee continues to work on the final details of that and planning the ceremony to align with local nations. So anticipate that to happen in mid-April, and further details will be forthcoming. So as takeaways from all the work that's been happening over the last few months, the team is now preparing to award the construction contract up to $80 million. And the reason I say up to is there's still a few pieces of value engineering work that are in flux, but that is the cap that we've set for now. Site mobilization is a big event, and that will start to take place on April 6th, primarily with some trailers and site logistics and fencing coming in. It'll take a few weeks for that to start to ramp up, and we would expect that later in April it would be a little bit more presence at the site by way of machinery and other activities starting to take place. So we'll continue to work with the communication staff, updating the website and working with the neighbors around the project site to have that transition be as smooth as possible. And finally, firming up the groundbreaking event details and sharing that out with the community. So that's the update as it relates to general project information. And just as it's been some time since we've been in front of council, I thought this would be appropriate to revisit the design and the story that has unfolded in the last number of years and all the work that's taken place, and what we have to look forward to as we move into construction. And with that, I'll pass it over to Paul.
Thank you, Jeff. And it certainly has been quite a time since we first started, and I think it's appropriate that the design story for this project really does begin several years ago with what was quite an extensive consultation with your community. And I want to commend the city for making the space for this conversation to happen, and for providing for that opportunity for community members to have a say. We saw extraordinarily high participation rates from your community in the process, and we feel from the design side that the design is all the richer for it, and we got really good input. The values that were put forward by the community around the design and the program and the spaces really have very concretely shaped what you're going to see today. And so we are extremely proud of the way in which this process has kind of finds its bedrock or its foundation in what your community has provided for input over really the last several years, stretching quite far back. Even before 2016, I know this project has been on the books for quite some time. Coming out of that community engagement, there was a visioning workshop that attempted to marry the kind of values that we heard from the community and from yourselves to concrete statements that would shape and guide the building. These ranged from notions around inclusivity and accessibility, creating a building where people could be who they wanted to be, and everybody felt welcome in the facility. Places where diversity is celebrated and where flexibility and adaptability for future considerations was taken to heart. And one particular item that stood out was reducing barriers to users from a broad range of members of the community. And I think that's one thing that we took with us from our learnings from the existing Canada Games pool, is that a new facility really needed to open the doors and be able to embrace people from all aspects of the community. And certainly a common thread that we heard throughout the design process and the engagement process was the legacy of community pride in the Canada Games pool itself. And this building has certainly served the community well for many, many years. And so we're now in the next evolution of that, the lifespan of that building, so to speak. But it certainly carries a strong history of serving its community well over many, many years. From a sustainability standpoint, I think this is a huge highlight for the project, and the city and the project team have really gone above and beyond and set the bar extremely high for this facility, including a number of firsts. So this will be the first aquatic center in Canada certified under the new CAGBC Zero Carbon Building Standard. And in fact, the data that has been developed, that has come out of the certification process for this project, is now being used to tweak and modify the benchmarks for this standard moving forward. So it's feeding back and providing contribution to a larger sustainability discussion beyond even this project. We're also employing a really innovative low-energy drum filtration system from Europe that is going to provide dramatically better levels of water quality and air quality for the facility at a lower energy rate. It will achieve LEED Gold certification. It's also meeting the Rick Hansen Accessibility Foundation certification for Gold, which really broadens the ways in which a building adapts to the needs of those of differently abled people in our community. And it will have a significant reduction, close to 90% in GHG emissions from its predecessor, the Canada Games Pool and the Centennial Community Centre. The design story for this project really starts at this scale, which is the scale really of the Glenbrook Ravine. And I think we love this photograph because it highlights the remnants of what we know of the Glenbrook Ravine now, but also points to a hidden past of that ravine. And of course, we know that the ravine originated on or close to our current site. And so we felt that reconnecting the story of that past ravine with the new building was a way of connecting the building to the land, to the geography, and what it means to be in this place in New Westminster. And so it's been a really powerful guiding principle for the project to date. So you see here the starting point really for how the building is oriented on the site. It's not an easy site, but it has a number of constraints. But that ravine, the old ravine that was filled in at some point, actually provides us with the guiding clues as to how the building can respect the different users of the site and still allow the existing Canada Games Pool and Centennial Community Centre to remain operational during construction. Another, along the theme of reconnecting the building to the land, is making sure that we respect the solar orientation of the site as well. And because the city grid is at a 45-degree angle to the solar orientation, the building actually departs from that and orients itself cardinally to solar south and north. And that really is important for a pool because we have very careful considerations around glare and solar gain to deal with. And so the building really does its best to align with the natural principles or natural organizing features of the site. It's also not a small building. And so the way in which we take this really large building and start to break down the scale of it has to do with how the programs are arranged. And so in this diagram, what you're seeing is really an acknowledgement that every program piece of the building has its own unique identity. And we're starting from small to large with the childcare on the far side, the gymnasia and the community center functions, and then the lobby and the leisure pool, and then the largest volume being the 50-meter pool on the right-hand side. Of course, uniting all of those things is this kind of common roof line, and it's sort of the common thread, that elevation marker that you're seeing highlighted in yellow, that stitches all of those building forms together and provides a comprehensive or a cohesive image and massing for the building. And this is a building on elevation here, and really what this is suggesting is both sort of a civicness and a timeless quality to the way in which the exterior elevation is composed and the materials that it's comprised of and the color palette, but also just identifying that really the heart of this building lies in the community living room, the lobby space, and that's what draws you in as the signal to how you enter the building and the site. This is a really quick animation that we did at some point during the design process, which gives you a better idea of how the building really responds to its site. And it starts, the highest point of the building, of course, is the atrium, which is the most important part of the project. And then it slopes down and it drops its shoulders towards the street to be a good neighbor. The landscape kind of draws you into that front door off of 6th Avenue. And as you turn the corner here, you reveal the fact that the building actually has two entrances, and so this is the north aspect of the building, the north plaza here, fronting onto the gymnasium volumes, spinning around to the other side of the building where the childcare is located, and the north side of that really extensive kind of landscaped area on the south side of the building. This is a rendering that's taken from what we call the South Plaza. There's a piece of prominent public art that will be positioned here, and really this is a large space that's intended for large-scale community gatherings to occur. And so in the middle of this sort of green corridor that takes you through the site, there will be this one point where the celebration can occur and the magic can happen. And that's directly connected to and supported by the atrium itself, which will have large open glazing or glass sliding doors. In the summer, those will be wide open and people will be able to go in and out seamlessly. On the north side of the building, we've got a slightly different character here, and this is perhaps a little bit more active or recreation focused, and is an area that's directly connected intentionally to the smaller gymnasium with large opening glass doors, so that in good weather that can really be allow the activity inside to spill outside and vice versa. The floor plan, which you're likely all familiar with, really shows you how the building is stepping back to accommodate that green corridor through the site, the ravine space through the site. And so just quickly here on the top left hand, we have the community center functions and the childcare. The number 12 here in the middle is the community atrium with entrances on both sides. And then we have the leisure pool and the change functions, and then the 50-meter pool on the far side here. And I think the important thing to recognize here is there's a tremendous versatility that's being offered from a programming perspective here in the way that the natatorium has been laid out. And so there's a whole wide range of activities that will be accommodated in the way that this design has allocated the water to the floor plan. On the second floor level, again, largely community center and administration functions on the left, and then a bridge over the atrium, and then a series of multi-purpose rooms here, and then we've got the spin studio, and really a large fitness room allocation. We heard from your community that fitness is really important, and so we've embedded it really at the heart of the facility, and it wraps around the 50-meter pool to allow for daylighting and views for anybody that's using equipment or working out in that space. The color palette was conceived to meet a couple of objectives. Firstly, we wanted it to be something that was warm and welcoming, and so the wood highlights that you're seeing really are emphasizing that. But we also wanted it to be simple and sophisticated and elegant and timeless. And so there's a simplicity that's been very intentional with the color palette that we think will serve the city well over many years to come. And one of the best images of the project, that central kind of gathering atrium space, and really the heart of the space, the heart of the building really, and there's this large circular stair that's clad in wood that takes you up and encourages you to use the stairs rather than the elevator. Large opening doors that will allow activity to flow in and out of the multipurpose room. And you can see overhead that really large wood roof, timber roof, with a skylight on the left that will be a beacon, especially at nighttime. That atrium will do a lot of heavy lifting for you, not just from a social perspective, but from a community gathering perspective. And so in day-to-day mode, it will look something like this. But there's a whole variety of conditions that the atrium will allow, ranging from more of an informal play scenario to all the way over to science fairs and galleries and performance spaces and the like. The 50-meter pool, of course, there's a strong legacy of both competitive swimming and swimming lengths for fitness, and that will be facilitated by the lap pool, the 50-meter pool, which has 2 bulkheads and a movable floor in it. And one of the great things about the orientation aligning with the south is that we can put in these really large north-facing clerestories that will bring in a very even light and very even natural light into the facility. You can see here we've also maintained that CLT roof timber system that will be framing the ceiling of the space. Just another angle here, you can get a sense as to how the fitness room wrapping around that space really provides a great view and visibility for anybody that's working out in that space. The quick cross-section through here showing you how those large north-facing sawtooth clerestories are bringing in that natural light, and then the fitness uses stacked on top of each other on the right-hand side of the page here. The leisure pool also sits underneath a really extensive timber roof that's going to give it a really warm feeling. What you're not seeing in this image are all the spray features and the play features that go along with a really kind of active leisure pool. All of those have been implemented and considered and included. And we're also still including a large glazed opening. So one of these bays here on the left will open completely to allow users, bathers, the chance to go outside and catch some sun as part of their bathing routine. And I'll leave you with this image. Really, this is kind of says it all. You know, a building that really has a very large scale and a civic presence, but at the end of the day, invites you to come in and participate and be part of the community. And we feel very strongly that the building that you have here that is going into construction fulfills all of the objectives that your community has asked you for, and really sets the bar extremely high for buildings of this nature in the region and even beyond. We'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, thank